what what happened in Los Angeles County and what is happening in Los Angeles County, my old county of residence. We'll talk about that pretty soon. But these these fires are for any of us, whether you have never been in public service, law enforcement, public safety, whether you have been like we were for so many decades, they're really beyond description and belief. Um, it's certainly a tragedy of unbelievable proportion. And I know that you and Anthony and Vince in the background there are still in Southern California. You specifically in Los Angeles County, and in Vince, Los Angeles County. Vince very close to the fires where you are. Um, we There's so much to talk about. And before we went on air here, we were talking offline that there's a million ways we can go with this and things to cover, and it's really too much for multiple podcasts. But we want to do this best we can to really dig deep into the human side and into the operational side as well with this. Sid, you're there now. I know you were in the South Bay, Bill, and just from someone on the ground, really fairly close to this. Tell us what's going on from your perspective.
I think a little calmer this morning. The wind has not been as bad the past couple days. Authorities have been able to get a little bit of a handle on most of the fires. Devastation, and Mark, this has obviously been a big topic in the news, and there's been some critique of people discussing what happened before we're quote out of the woods. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to call it Monday morning quarterbacking, but looking at what happened while the crisis is still ongoing. And one thing that I think is important to mention is that this is the worst Southern California fire, right? But it's not the first. I think you were probably still the chief when we had the huge Sepulveda Pass fire in 2018, very close to where this fire was. And after that, Mark, there was talk about we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do better in the future. And I think we'll get into some of those things. And those things were not done. And we find ourselves in the same position again. So I think to some extent, although this is an ongoing thing and we both know people personally that have been impacted, it's fair to start looking at what happened and do our part to make sure this doesn't happen again.
You talked about Sepulveda Pass and fires there, and actually, I was an assistant chief. It wasn't too long before I promoted, and so many fires. It's of my time in the Highway Patrol and in management, there are too many really to articulate. Which goes to your point, Bill, about here in Florida, you got hurricanes, and generally with hurricanes, you have a pretty good advance notice they're coming. You get this depression and turns into a storm and turns to a hurricane, and you can really prepare not only in general for response, but you can actually fortify certain areas with predictions of the path. That specificity is not available with a situation like this. However, again, to your point, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when and how big, under what circumstances these fires are going to happen. That's all there is to it. And so we know they're coming. Also, to your point about Sepulveda and that west side of Los Angeles, I want to be clear. We all know that there are multiple fires burning now, but generally speaking, for purposes of this discussion today, we're talking about the Palisades fire and then the Eden Canyon fire. And the Eden fire, it primarily, not exclusively, but hit Altadena, my former town. We're going to talk about it. Also hit Sierra Madre, parts of Pasadena, Monrovia, La Cañada. That whole area is still in trouble, although I think things are getting under control, so to speak, in that area. But with that said, I want to start off with this very short video. And let's put it this way. We moved from almost the exact ignition point of the Eaton fire a year and a half ago. We left there. Anthony just put on the screen our old house. And the emotions are probably running as high for me as they can for someone who didn't lose their current home. But what you're seeing is there, that is until we moved here to Florida, that was the only home that my son knew. He cried the day that we left. He went to his bedroom and he stood there and he sobbed because it was the only home and it was the only bedroom of his own that he had known. It's very difficult to leave. The reason I say that it's as close to home as possible is because, Anthony, I want you to go ahead and when I tell you to start panning, go ahead and play the video. I'll tell you in a second. But as this video pans to the right, I want you to notice what's not there. And what's not there is the home of two of our best friends in the world. I won't share their names, but they came just to visit here just about 3 months ago, our home in Florida. That's how close we are. And like the home you see there, my son did a lot of growing up in their house. He became best friends with their granddaughter, who's about the same age as he is. And this is from the time they're about 4 years old to 9 years old. And I'm getting emotional thinking about it, but he spent so many nights there, so many days in their pool. We all spent so many great evenings together, over great dinners and adult beverages and Easters and Christmas we shared in both houses. And Anthony, go ahead and play it, but I want you to see what happened to the two of our best friends in the world's house and how our house somehow stood. That's what's left of some of my happiest memories. Across the street, there's a school burned to the ground. Across the street from us, a neighbor survived. That house to our east, to the left on the screen, burned to the ground. That home, you can let it keep playing, but that's our neighbors there. It's the two of our best friends gone. You can see we shared a fence. We built that fence together. We split the cost in that fence. We were just soulmates, the four of us, really the six of us, with our son and their granddaughter. And we're in communication with them now. That house, the last frame you see in that video, the house to the east, or frame left here, owned by a woman who actually ran a very, very large home, ran a rehabilitation service for elderly patients in her house, a very, very large house. I spoke with her daughter last night, and she just said, "Mom's okay," and sent a teary-eyed emoji. She said, "Mark, all she has are the clothes that she had on her back when she left. That's the only thing she has left." She had been there for, I forget how long, decades. Our friends to screen right had been there for 52 years in that home. And it just, again, I could go on and on about this, but, and again, somehow our old house there, it's a tinderbox. It's a wood frame house. It's under 9 gigantic oak trees. I was always afraid that we're going to go up like, kindling in the next wildfire. And somehow, for some reason, that house stood, and so many around. To give you a little perspective about this, I have another friend about 1 block away, beautiful, large home, gone. She didn't know, and for about 2 days afterwards, her house is gone. All she got her cat and her laptop. She was gone. Her house is razed. She's about 2 doors down, just so everybody knows by perspective. For those of you who are old enough, the old series 90210, the house you would see in the opening scene of that was supposed to be in Beverly Hills. That was a few doors down from her house. So about 1.5 blocks from where we are right there. This is the neighborhood. Just so you know, we're about 1,400 feet elevation. We're literally about 2 blocks from Angeles National Forest, and we're about 1.5 miles from the ignition point, we believe, of the Eaton fire. I put this up here because although I know Palisades very, very well, I lived here in Altadena near the Eaton fire, right in the middle of the Eaton fire, and wanted to share with everybody that I want to be careful of my sensitivities about this, about the personal side.
Mm.
But it is impossible on a show like this with someone like Bill Bodner and myself, who spent so many years serving the people of the United States and people of California, respectively, that we cannot examine and talk about leadership or lack thereof and accountability. It's impossible, and um, it would be a shortcoming on our part if we didn't address those things. So I just want to share that with everybody. Bill, I know I won't use his last name, but I talked to
Yeah.
Brian. You sent me information. It's a mutual friend of Bill and
Yeah.
mine, and another gentleman who was in public service for years. He lost everything, Bill, and I know you probably in contact with him as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm Mark. There's somebody I've known for actually, he's responsible for me being a DEA agent. I've known him since before I started working at DEA, so 35 years. And man, to hear his story about getting out and the difficulties in just getting out of the fire area, and another story where he did not get out with too much. He the clothes on his back, kind of, and some papers, and
And that's it.
yeah,
Well, so Bill and and I think everybody on here, I mean, a lot of people listening to the show, is what I mean, may have known people that lost everything, but we certainly do. And by the way, we still know people, I do, that are under evacuation orders. They still
yeah,
don't know the necessarily the fate of their properties. By the way, I was able to determine for some people out there, because of my contacts with the Highway Patrol. It was really wonderful. I was able to let people know, hey, your house is okay. It survived. And in some cases, just like mine, where everything around it burned down, but their house survived. So those were good communications I had. But as I said, Bill, we can't separate the personal from the really the operational, the professional, the accountability side of this. And one of the things when unforeseen, and I use that word with quotes, we're going to get into this, when specific incidents happen, it's your job as a leader, it's our job as leaders to talk, to answer questions,
hmm,
to show responsibility, to provide as much information as reasonable.